Colleagues, who got the music?
Okay.
You got the music right there. Yes, we ready? Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Honorable Philip Davis, Madam Secretary General, incoming Chairman of CARICOM, Prime Minister of Dominica, the Honorable Roosevelt Scarrett, Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Mottley, other heads of government, delegates to this 44th regular meeting of the heads of government of CARICOM, local media members, and our colleagues who are joining us by Zoom. Good evening. This is indeed the closing ceremony for this meeting of CARICOM. We will have statements first, and then we will have questions and answers. Let me just remind our colleagues here, as well as at Zoom, you will be allowed 2 questions each. Mr. Chairman, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. And welcome to the closing press conference of the 44th conference of CARICOM heads of government. I'll start off by recognizing my fellow heads of government, our Secretary General, and new members of the local and international media who are in this room and online. The 44th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community was held from Wednesday, February 15th, and concluded this afternoon. We had robust and fruitful discussions and are confident that we have advanced the agenda for Caribbean integration, the growth of our national and regional economies, and the well-being of our peoples. The conference welcomed several special guests. The Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, who emphasized his government's commitment to forge stronger ties with the region through the continuation of the Caribbean-Canadian Trade Agreement, CARICOM, and to support strategies to address climate change and create employment. He also underscored Canada's support to curb the ongoing instability in Haiti, which is troubling to this region. Heads of government also welcomed the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Discussions focused on the commitment of CARICOM countries to a rule-based multilateral trading system. Member states also discussed completing negotiations towards a comprehensive and effective agreement on fisheries subsidies, the need for open, transparent, and effective negotiations on agricultural trade reform, and a fully functioning dispute settlement mechanism for all members of the community. We also engaged with Professor Benedict Oramah, President of the Afro-Exim Bank, and welcomed the bank's wide range of services that he has made available to member states. We also received this morning a presentation from His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky, President of the Ukraine, who updated us on the challenges that Ukraine is undergoing with the ongoing war with Russia. Heads of government deliberated on an effective agenda to advance sustainable peace and prosperity in our sister island, Haiti. A statement on the matter was issued today, Friday 19th, which reiterated that CARICOM must play a leadership role to address the deteriorating situation in Haiti, a member state of the community, in light of our moral and political obligations. Heads of government received an update from the Caribbean Public Health Agencies, commonly called CARICOM, a comprehensive response to COVID-19, monkeypox, and other regional health security threats. We noted with concern the continuing prevalence of non-communicable diseases, NCDs, and stressed the importance of sustained efforts to address it. We recognize the need to allocate adequate resources for vector control programs to curtail the spread of Zika in the region and agreed to support CAFA's vaccine campaign launch to improve COVID-19 vaccination and a regular expanded program of immunization activities. We discussed amendments to the revised Treaty of Chagaramas to provide for the regulation of mergers and acquisitions in the CSME based on an approved community policy. Heads of government endorsed the decision of the COFAP to amend the intra-CARICOM double taxation agreement through a protocol on treaty shopping and exchange of information. Our expectation is that the protocol should be ready for signature at the regular meeting of the conference in July 2023 in Rosé, Dominica. Heads of government receive an update on the progress made by the CARICOM Ministerial Task Force on Food Production and Food Security and endorse its priority activities for 2023. The task force has been focusing and addressing its efforts on several thematic areas which are deemed to have retarded regional agricultural growth, including the removal of non-tariff barriers to regional trade in agricultural produce, de-risking of the sector, digital agriculture, research and development, and review of the CET. We also received a project proposal, Building Food Security through Innovation, Resilience, Sustainability, and Empowerment, from the President of Guyana, and accepted its government's pledge of $2 million towards financing and implementing this project. Heads of government discussed the need for measures to improve the functioning of the global financial system, particularly in the context of the numerous crises adversely affecting the community and which put middle-income countries at risk for reversal of economic gain. These include climate change, debt, food and water insecurity, the digital divide, health pandemics and antimicrobial resistance, and threats to biodiversity. We agreed to work collectively for complete restructuring of the global financial architecture that will allow countries of the region to respond to the current and emerging existential threats. We call this initiative the Bridgetown Initiative. That is the brainchild of our colleague, Prime Minister Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados. And the initiative is designed for the reform of the global financial architecture. The heads of government expressed deep concern at the current levels of violence being experienced in member states. We recognize that to adequately address crime and violence, a holistic approach must be undertaken which addresses economic growth and prosperity, legislative, judicial, police, and education reform. In this regard, the meeting agreed to a symposium to be hosted by Trinidad and Tobago in April 2023 to consider crime, particularly violent crime, as a public health concern. Heads of government discuss CARICOM's 50th anniversary celebrations, which officially gets underway in July 2023 in Dominica, where the next regular heads of government meeting will be held from July 3rd to July 6th. We proposed that, propelled by the theme, 50 years strong, a solid foundation to build on, the celebrations will allow an opportunity for review, reflection, reform, and renewal, where we will examine the founding tenets of the Treaty of Chagaramas, achievements of the past 50 years, and strategies for guiding our countries into a vibrant, thriving region of prosperity and peace. Members of the press, colleagues, this our opening statement with respect to this press conference. I have with me my colleagues, as I indicated, Prime Minister Mia Motley and the incoming chair to succeed me, Prime Minister of Dominica, Roosevelt Skerrit, and the Secretary General, Dr. Carla Barnett, to respond to questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I want to remind the press, local and Zoom, please identify yourself when you're asking questions, and you will be given the opportunity to ask 2 questions. Go ahead. Come here, please.
Good evening. Jacqueline Charles, Miami Herald, Caribbean Haiti correspondent. Can you talk about any specifics, decisions that you all have taken in regard to Haiti? And is there a timetable on when we can see a visit by CARICOM leaders to the country? Thank you.
We just issued a statement a few minutes ago. I don't know whether you've received it yet, Jackie, but that statement would indicate that we, the CARICOM, has taken our moral obligation seriously to assist in resolving the issues in Haiti. And the first step would be to see how we can strengthen the HNP, the Haitian National Police, to enable them to restore order and to curb the criminal activities that are being conducted on the island. Then we also hope to, and we hope to have a meeting in the shortest possible time with stakeholders in Haiti, with representatives of CARICOM, and perhaps an international partner to talk about how we can strengthen the Haitian National Police, because we are of the view that we have to create this space in which peace and prosperity, peace in the first instance, can be obtained to enable the free movement of people without fear, to enable them to move to the next stage of expressing their will for a new election to be held in fair, transparent, and free elections. There will also, another step that's been taken is to convene a meeting, again within the shortest possible time, in Jamaica with all of the stakeholders, those who were a part of the December 21st accord that was signed, and those who were not a part of that. We would wish to also have them included in that discussion. The detail is being worked on, but it is hoped to be held in the possible time as well.
Just a quick follow-up. The HMP is 9,000 police officers. I just came back from Haiti, 2 back-to-back trips. The first one, I landed in the middle of the police riots with a top Biden official. The next one was just yesterday, where in the Artibonite, 2 hours from Port-au-Prince, 2 police stations have been abandoned as a result of 7 police officers that were killed in 3 successive attacks. 78 officers have been killed in the last 20 months. At the same time, the Biden administration has opened up this humanitarian parole program. The head of the passport office says he estimates conservatively that they may lose 1/3 of the police force as a result of officers applying for passports to leave. Given all of those challenges, how do you see being able to strengthen a police force when the bright lights of Miami is shining in their face? Can I-
clearly, the pull of the promise of refugee status of 30,000 residents from the islands, from the four countries, Cuba, Venezuela, Haiti, and Nicaragua, and in particular Haiti, is a draw for anyone who's in Haiti, particularly in the circumstances under which Haiti now is now experiencing. And it is counterproductive to be encouraging police officers to abandon their station, as it were, for the bright lights of Miami. This is a matter that was brought to our attention during the course of these discussions, and in fact, we were told at least 600 or more have already left. Again, we cannot just allow what is going on to stop us from inaction. And there's still a belief that there are a number of Haitians who are prepared to put themselves or to move to work towards having a peaceful country, to return it to normalcy. And we are encouraged that there are a number of Haitians, once they know that they will be properly supported, properly resourced, that they will come to the fore to assist. The question now of the pull to Miami, we will be addressing, and we're addressing when those meetings are held.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jimenita Swain from the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. Now, Mr. Chair, you indicated earlier on in your remarks, discussions with the Afri-XM Bank. We understand that 9 countries have indicated or expressed an interest in joining. Have any other countries in the course of discussions expressed an interest to join and to increase those numbers?
Yes, a number of the other countries who have not signed they have expressed interest to join, and I think hopefully by the end of this week, we will more countries on board, and the 1.5 billion that has been allocated, we look the saying increase to 3 billion.
And as a follow-up question to your remarks earlier, you touched briefly on, I guess, the upcoming discussions as it relates to the amendments to the Treaty of Chaguaramas and CSME. I know the Bahamas has opted not to take on that aspect. Any changes, any movements, what would those amendments look like, if you're able to say at this point in time?
Well, you're right, we have not acceded to the CSME protocols, but that does not exclude us from the CARICOM community. In respect to those amendments, there are a number of issues. There is a move to set up a Caribbean stock exchange, and that would require some amendment to the document that governs the conduct in that market. The amendments will speak to matters of mergers and acquisitions, for example, but the entities in the community. But I'll invite Prime Minister Motley to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've already answered the question, so I will stand by your answer and simply say that the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, while a good treaty, does have some gaps, and it is intended to be able to allow us to have a policy framework for mergers and acquisitions. Countries are now reviewing it, and it will go to COTED, and after COTED, the settled agreement will then come here. Why? Because in this type of environment, we expect more and more companies to be looking at the issue of merging or acquiring other companies, and we feel that we need a regulatory framework that is both enabling and protective. So it is intended to deal with that. With respect to the regional capital markets, that will take another 18 months or so for us to do the work that has to be done. But I think we're all agreed that at this very moment in time, rather than having separate stock exchanges, that we need to have a strong regional capital market that will provide the funding for our companies in order to be able to move to the next level, and also to stave off the types of competition that would otherwise be coming at them from outside the region.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim and Anita. We are going to go to Zoom now. We have a question by Zoom. Are you there?
Hi, good afternoon, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right, this is Barry Allen from the Nation newspaper in Barbados. The question is for the chairman and Prime Minister of Barbados, Ms. Motley, as well. As you guys are well aware, there's a level of frustration in the Caribbean as it relates to interregional travel, both by land and by air. Can you give any indication if anything concrete came out of solution finding in terms of finding a way to improve, in a very tangible way, interregional travel connectivity for the diaspora? Thank you.
Well, it's an ongoing discussion. We have mandated the central bank to explore and to examine the current challenge that we have and to come up with some recommendations on how we can overcome the travel issue, interregional travel. I mean, we had discussions here today as well on this. We got a report, an update from the president of the Caribbean Development Bank. Among ourselves as heads, we've also discussed a number of actions we believe that we can take in immediate to help resolve or alleviate the current challenge that we have. The reality is, I mean, we all miss Liat in the Caribbean, an airline that was chastised by so many of us. But now we understand and appreciate the important public good which Liat espoused for so many decades. And so we're looking at what kind of construct we can bring into play, recognizing that there are existing companies that are servicing our islands, and see how we can work with those existing entities to seek to alleviate the current challenge. While I'm here, Chair, I also need to draw attention to the situation in Suriname. As you know, there was this demonstration in Suriname, and of course we respect every citizen's right to protest within the confines of the provisions of the Constitution and the relevant laws in the country. But also we stand in solidarity in recognizing the democratically elected government led by President Santoki, and we do hope that all actors can respect the rule of law and respect people's right to move freely. And we certainly condemn the storming of the parliament. It appears that this is becoming a practice in our hemisphere, and it's something that we all need to seek to condemn and to stamp out in our hemisphere. And we call for calm and a restoration of peace and order, and allow for dialogue to take place, and the issues among the Surinamese people can be addressed in a respectful, lawful manner. And so we call on all to respect the rule of law and to maintain the rule of law in Suriname. Thank you, Chairman.
I don't think Barry's expecting me to add to that because you've answered the question. Prime Minister Skerritt has answered the question as well. Only to say that with respect to Suriname, we would also like to add our strong voices. I believe the community has put out a statement too. What has happened there today is most unfortunate. People can express their views, but there is no excuse for violence in any manner, form, or fashion. And to the extent that persons have been injured, and to the extent that property has been damaged, the ultimate loss is also to the stability of the country. And I think Prime Minister Skerritt's call for peace to reign and for stability to come and calm to be there is what all of us must do now, because it is unacceptable for anybody to be putting people's lives at risk. Thank you.
We have another question from our colleagues on Zoom. Yes.
Good evening, Vishani Raghuver, Newsroom Guyana. I understand there's a plan to implement some hydroponics project across CARICOM to boost food production. Can you offer some details on that plan? And additionally, can you perhaps offer some updates on what progress has been made in advancing the 20 by 2025 food security agenda?
Thank you. This continues to be a work in progress for us. President Ali was able to update the community on the plans that are in place both at the bilateral level and multilaterally within the region for improvements in food production. We were also the beneficiary of a promise of, I think it's $26 million from the United States government to assist us in this respect. And of course, he has also negotiated a pipeline of $100 million from one of our regional banks to assist those countries and entities within our countries who want to participate in the boosting of the food production. Suffice it to say that we also are conscious that there are some things that still remain to be done in terms of the removal of barriers, sanitary and phytosanitary barriers, in order to allow for the efficient movement of agricultural products across the region. I think that it is fair to say that this has been one of the areas of serious progress in the last year to 18 months within the community, and we anticipate that we will see more. Let me say that as it relates to taking control of the production of feed for the region, that is work that is also in progress, but the reality is that that will take probably till 2025 in order to be able to come to full fruition and for us to get the full benefits of it. And we know that there is a lot of hurting by our people in the region because of the increases in feed prices and fertilizers over the course of the last year, in particular since the Ukraine war. So good progress being made. Not yet there, but we hope that our voices can continue to encourage Caribbean people that claiming food security by ensuring that we play our part is absolutely vital for us going forward in this world. Thank you.
Hydroponic farms, and he presented to us a proposal entitled the Building Food Security Through Innovation, Resilience, Sustainability, and Empowerment, and that includes the expanse of hydroponics farm. And it is also to be presented as a plan to the U.S. to access the funds that they promised to us. The hydroponics was called the shade houses.
E.O. Seeley, Eyewitness News, Bahamas. Lots of talk has been ongoing about how CARICOM will deal with the ongoing crisis on the ground in Haiti. Has there been any specific talks within CARICOM during this 44th sitting about approaching G7 countries like Canada for funding to specifically get armed forces from respective countries to get additional boots on the ground to help with shoring up the police force there, considering that hundreds of Haitian police officers continue to leave the force.
As mentioned earlier, we engage on the question of Haiti, and the Prime Minister of Canada was a part of our discussion. The path towards bringing peace and stability to Haiti at the moment does not include boots on the ground, but rather building up the security mechanism that is in place, and that is the Haitian National Police, working and resourcing them as best we can. For example, ensuring that food is provided to them, they are paid on time, and at the same time expanding the force to be able to ensure that they have the capacity to deal with the issues that are there. So we are not there yet about boots on the ground, and we also feel that in the event, in some of the other initiatives that's been taken by the international partners, like sanctions, that will also work because it cuts the funding to the armed gangs and other criminal organizations that is wreaking havoc in the country.
Thank you. Second question, I'm happy to hear that CARICOM spoke on the protests that unfolded in Suriname today. My second question is focused on those sorts of demonstrations in various CARICOM nations. We've seen the demonstrations and protests against government heads in some CARICOM countries have intensified. Is it safe to say that more needs to be done sooner than later with respect to CARICOM nations addressing the rising cost of living, the rising cost of fuel, and the general upset among respective electorates? Is it that the Bridgetown Initiative will seek to address these issues regionally, and how soon will we actually see the fruits of that coming to bear within CARICOM?
I'll let you start with that, since he raised Bridgetown Initiative.
I think you're conflating a number of things, but we'll try to answer as best we can. There's no doubt that the region, like the rest of the world, has had a difficult few years. And the more I think about it, the more I feel for people and for us to understand that coping mechanisms are necessary for everyone. The rising cost of living, the rising fuel prices, we've seen them rise and reduce in terms of fuel. There's a risk of it rising again. With respect to cost of living, the price of freight, caused predominantly by the disruption in the global supply chain, went up. Those prices started to come down again. But regrettably, as we know in our region and perhaps other parts, when prices rise, they hardly ever come back down. In our own country, we have tried to enter into a voluntary compact with the private sector and the labor movement to see the markups being contained. And I say markups because the majority of what we use in this region we do not produce. So we will import inflation because the inflation is coming internationally. With respect to the Bridgetown Initiative, what we are saying is that we need to have better terms and conditions for accessing finance to give us the ability to buy more, do more, and to be able to create that space so that we can do for our citizens more. This region is heavily indebted, not because of profligacy or corruption, but because we continue to face serious exogenous external shocks and also serious problems as it relates to the climate crisis. Every time a hurricane or a storm or a flood hits, invariably it is the governments that are carrying the costs of trying to restore people to stability, to build the houses, to deal with the infrastructure, to protect coastal defenses. And all of these things eat in to the space that you would normally have to provide access to education and health and to be able to subsidize and promote some level of buffer between the citizens and the increasing cost of living. So all of these things come back into one. To the extent that we can be successful in reducing the cost of borrowing, it is critical that that gives us then additional space to do other things that we would not be able to do. As to where it leads us, we will see. The first part of the Bridgetown Initiative spoke always about the establishment of options and longer-term funding to help us with climate. The International Monetary Fund has already established a Resilience and Sustainability Trust. Barbados is benefiting from it. The difficulty is that the conditionality for that particular facility is IMF-driven. We are fighting for other facilities and other opportunities within the World Bank and the regional multilateral development banks by having them augment their resources without necessarily large checks having to be written, by literally changing how we view the leveraging of capital on their balance sheets. So, in short, it is about, yes, creating more space that we can do more for ourselves, our citizens, and protecting us against future crises, be it climate or pandemic or other things. As it relates specifically to buffering for our citizens, yes, it will also help us to be able to ensure that we can cap taxes or that we can provide subsidies where necessary, not because we want to do this on a long-term basis, but sometimes you have to ease the pressure on people as best you can. By the same token, we cannot dismiss the obligation of the responsibility that must be placed also on our own people to begin to find coping mechanisms and to be able to do things that can reduce the impact of the increased cost of living on them. We need to be growing more of our own food, not just at a commercial level, but at a household level in order to reduce what we buy. We need to ensure that we share more and that we do the things that don't cause us to rely only on governments to protect us. Whether we like it or not, we are in a moment similar to what our grandparents and great-grandparents went through 100 years ago. They knew what it was to go to war. We are at war with the climate crisis. We're at war with cost of living. We're at war with the pandemic. We're at war with so many things. And regrettably, our history and our faith in many instances tell us and remind us that life and our civilizations are about peaks and valleys. Regrettably, we're going through a valley, or if you prefer, since we're in the Bahamas, a maritime analogy, we're going through some rough seas. And when you're going through rough seas, you can't swim freestyle, you can't swim breaststroke, you can't swim backstroke. You may only be able to dog paddle or float. Let us dog paddle, let us float, the seas will become calm again. And when they become calm again, then we can have greater expectations to meet our wants, but for now, let us focus on our needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Jared Higgs from the Nassau Guardian. There are some who call for France to pay reparations to Haiti, given the independence tax France imposed on Haiti after the Haitian Revolution in the early 1800s. Some experts say that tax was detrimental to Haiti's progress in its earlier years. Former French President François Hollande said in 2015 that France owes a moral debt to Haiti, but he stopped short of admitting the need for France to pay reparations to Haiti. Does CARICOM believe that France should pay reparations to Haiti?
Well, as you know, CARICOM has taken a decision to establish a mechanism to engage all former colonial countries, masters, on the question of reparation. And each country were mandated to also establish a national reparations committee to engage on this subject. This is a global subject. And of course, Haiti is part of the Caribbean community and the global architecture. And no doubt, Haiti's current situation, part of it has to do with its history and the way it was treated as the first country which saw the emancipation of slaves. And so the discussion on reparation, including reparations for the Haitian people, are all part of the discussions that we're having at the Caribbean community level on this question. I mean, there's no doubt we believe as Caribbean people that some kind of recompense need to be provided to us for the many atrocities of slavery in our region. And so on the question of reparations to Haiti, it forms part of the CARICOM's consideration and concern in respect to our historical circumstance. And the reality is, it's an important question which has to occupy the minds of all Caribbean people, and to appreciate our history and the atrocities which we've gone through as a people, and to engage and to really move away with just. I don't think we should only accept apologies or a recognition that a wrong was done. If a wrong is done to you and you go to court, then you'll get compensation. And I think we have to start looking at these things from that vantage point, similar to the climate crisis that we are experiencing. I mean, at every COP meeting, there is a new offer of assistance, but they're never forthcoming. And the reality is we continue to confront the ravaging impacts of climate change on our islands and the sheer cost of reconstructing after a natural disaster like this we've been experiencing. Here in the Bahamas, you're known to this almost on a daily basis in one form or the other. And so the number of injustices that we're facing as developing world, and the reality is time is not on our side to have them addressed. And so these are things that continue to occupy our minds, and we have discussed these matters, and they'll continue to be discussed. We'll continue to engage at the regional level, but also at the national levels as well, and engage the former colonial masters on the issue, on the question of reparations for countries. And what form it takes is a matter for us to determine that in consultation with those concerns.
As a follow-up,
I just want to say, and to add to that, there will be a subcommittee of the Prime Minister's Subcommittee on Reparations meeting shortly, but we do take note as well of the fact that the Netherlands has started the ball. Is it adequate? Is it appropriate? All of that may be the subject of many discussions and agreement and disagreement. But suffice it to say that at least the ball has started to roll with respect to the Netherlands statement. I think they need to go further, and I think that our engagement with Europe has to be at a level where, as I said, we place these matters for mature consideration, recognizing that we are the victims now of a double jeopardy, as Prime Minister Skerritt just said, that it was the blood, sweat, and tears of our people that financed the Industrial Revolution, and it is the very same consequences of the Industrial Revolution that are causing us now this existential crisis. So that we believe that as a community, this ought to be the subject of discussion, and to the extent that those discussions take place, Haiti, of course, has to be at the center of it as the first country, as he said, to have declared independence and to have emancipated black people as slaves.
and if I may, with a short follow-up, some suggest that perhaps CARICOM should collectively advocate for Haiti to get reparations. What do you think of that suggestion? And what I mean is, instead of individually, put the efforts towards Haiti.
That's exactly what we're doing. So that it's not, Haiti will be at the center, and if I may be bold enough, it has perhaps the most compelling case, but all of us have cases as well that have to be justified. Look, when we became independent countries, we had no compact left for us that allowed us to deal with poverty, housing, education, healthcare, or building a modern economy. What we had was a society and an economy that had been sucked dry and wealth extracted from it for centuries. Now, if you start with a deficit, you have hell to catch up and play, and that has been our experience in these 50, 60 years since independence.
Thank you. Good evening, panel, Prime Ministers. My name is DeAndre Hamilton with Magnetic Media, Turks and Caicos Islands and the Bahamas. I'm curious about, well, first of all, we didn't hear a response to the timeline as it relates to Haiti. I don't know if that can be addressed within this answer, but there is great concern about the 5 to 7 million children who are either malnourished or starving in Haiti. Is there any greater urgency? Is there any concrete information you can give that people in Haiti are being supported amidst this crisis with the very basic needs?
Yeah. Those issues are alive to us, and the humanitarian aspect to the issues in Haiti has to be addressed as well. The challenge has been is that any aid that's been sent to Haiti or any aid to be given to Haiti is being hijacked by the gangs, because we are advised that the gangs control the points of entry to be able to have, to get food and other supplies and medicine to the population. There is an urgency to the matter, and that's why I would have said within weeks. Don't give the times now, but within weeks, I dare say within the next 3 weeks, you would see the results of the efforts of CARICOM.
My second question, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. My second question has to do with the participation of the United States. We know we heard you speak earlier about Africa's Exim Bank, the Import-Export Bank. We know what the Prime Minister of Canada has said will happen from his country's quarters. What was the activity of the United States? Were they here to talk about climate funding? I know we did have a special representative in that area, in former Senator Kerry. Were they here to talk to us about guns and the proliferation of them in the Caribbean region? Were they talking to us about what they're going to do as it relates to Haiti, or anything else for that matter? Can you just give us a report on the discussions with the U.S. officials?
Well, the conversation with me covered all of those matters you addressed, the issue of climate change with John Kerry, and what is the possible outcome for the COP28 that is coming up in Dubai in November. We also discussed the issue of Haiti, and I will say no more than that about it at this time. But again, we've been talking about it. CARICOM believes it's time for action and not just talk. But that, I'll leave it at that for the moment. But they have committed themselves to support the efforts that we have. And at the moment, we are now crafting a plan. We will indicate to them what that plan is, and then we look to them for the support that they have promised and committed to.
Good evening, Christina Dragovich, Our News Bahamas. We know that a number of guns enter the country and the region from the U.S., and we know that a crime symposium is set for April, addressing economic, legislative, police, and educational reform. But what about the source of those guns?
Well, a discussion on violence in the Caribbean cannot be disassociated from the fact that it's gun-generated most of these violent crimes. And so gun will be an issue. And yes, that's a topic that we have all taken to the doorsteps of the manufacturers of guns. For me, I've continually said to our neighbors to the north, their right to bear arms does not equate to the right in trafficking in arms, meaning you have the right to bear it, but we don't believe that you have a right to to traffic it. I'm being advised that several new initiatives or legislation have been passed. The Chargé d'Affaires has kindly and thankfully provided me with a list of new legislations that's passed. We have not seen the effect of it as yet, but I hope them reviewed to appreciate what it truly means. But we will be, as part of the exercise, in the meetings we have, discussed this issue of trafficking in guns. And at the same time, we have reached a point where it is believed that violent crimes throughout the Caribbean, throughout the region, the Bahamas no less than others, see this now as a public health issue. Thank you.
Good evening, panel. My name is Shelley Lewis from Global Impact News, and we've heard much talk about the crisis in Haiti, and we want to know what efforts are being made. What do you see these efforts potentially impacting the crisis in Haiti? And Prime Minister Davis, perhaps you can also answer. The Supreme Court recently made a ruling with regards to an injunction on shanty towns in the Bahamas. We have an overwhelming problem with shanty towns and the expansion of Haitian communities. Do you see this as having any impact on the government's decision to move forward with what you plan to do?
The removal of the injunction was to enable the government to have as many options as it could to deal with this issue that has become quite a hot topic in the country today. Shanty towns is a challenge and a problem in this country, and we do propose to deal with it. But we cannot deal with it by addressing one problem to create another problem. If we move as quickly as some would wish to take down the shanty towns, destroy them, people are living in these buildings and in the shanty towns. So taking down the shanty towns could create the other problem of leaving hundreds or thousands of persons homeless. And then what then we create is another crisis. And so there's no sense responding to a crisis to create another crisis. And so thought is being given as to how best we deal with the shanty towns, which is ongoing. And we are only influenced by the fact that we need to have a response, we need to deal with it, and that will influence our actions going forward.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Arabina Apia, A Closer Look, Bahamas. So the issues of migration, food security, the impacts of inflation, and the energy crisis have all been discussed this week at a very high level. What are the plans of the Bahamas government and CARICOM as a whole to really get persons, the residents at the grass level, to care about these issues, to get them mobilized and talking and thinking about how they play a role in the issues that have been discussed this week?
Well, I think every citizen within the Caribbean space need to be engaged. First of all, we need to inform ourselves and be part of the conversations that we've been having at the regional level, but also at the national level. I think sometimes we do not find ourselves engaging with each other or want to be part of that engagement. And I think it's an error that our citizens are making, in that so many wonderful decisions and actions have been taken, and policies and programs have been taken to advance the region. But we get the sense that we're not even informed of them, far more to position ourselves to benefit from it. On the issue of climate change, I keep saying to my own citizens that really the only people who talk about climate change and the impact on our society is the government. The private sector is not engaged. The civil society is not engaged. The Bridgetown initiative, for example, it is absolutely important that every one of us in the Caribbean, the universities, the colleges, civil society, the trade unions, the employers' federations, we all need to get a copy of this document, read it, and appreciate what it is seeking to do and the issues it is seeking to address, which are confronting our very existence. We talk about high cost of food prices and investments in agriculture. We want better schools. We want more advanced healthcare services. We want better housing for our citizens. We want to get rid of the shanty towns. We want to address coastal degradation. All of these things cost money, but we do not have the fiscal space to do these things. And therefore, it's important that we in the Caribbean, the media has a very critical role to play in counteracting fake news that is now becoming the educators of the society, the information source of the society. And therefore, it's important that the media appreciates the tremendous progress we've made over the last 50 years within the Caribbean community. And in our efforts to seek to confront challenges which have been created outside of the region, but which we have to confront in our respective countries and in this region. And so the engagement has to be done by we informing ourselves of the realities of the situations in our respective countries, the challenges that we face, and of course what the respective governments are doing, and also at the Caribbean community level to seek to address these issues in large measure by ourselves. I mean, we keep referencing the issue of climate change. I do not believe that the Caribbean region, our citizens, appreciate the extent of the threat which the impacts of climate change is posing to us. We have a hurricane and we're able to bounce back and everybody believes everything is fine. No, we need to have access to resources to build resilience, to build adaptation, and to put mitigation mechanisms in place to sustain our economies. And so it's important for us to inform ourselves of the issues confronting us and how you, as a journalist and your colleagues and citizens, what are some of the suggestions in terms of solutions that governments can consider to addressing the challenges that we confront? Because at the end of the day, the ideas do not only reside within the cabinets of our respective countries. I mean, it resides throughout the society. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Prime Minister's Secretary General, on behalf of the local media, and indeed the media joined us by Zoom, we just want to say thank you for allowing us this time.
Before you close, Madam, I want to, on behalf of all of us, to say thanks to the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the government, and the people of the Bahamas for the warm welcome that you provided to us. This is extraordinary. And you know, notwithstanding the fact that the Bahamas is a bit removed from us in the southern part of the Caribbean, the Bahamas continues to play a leading role, a leadership role in all of the initiatives that we have been discussing and addressing at the CARICOM level. And it speaks to your understanding and appreciation that we're all one, we're all part of the Caribbean. And over the last couple of days, we have seen on display the leadership of Prime Minister Davis. No wonder they call him brave, you know. But we are comforted that he is a chairman at this very crucial period within the Caribbean community to deal with issues of Haiti, to prepare us for COP28 and so many other issues that we're confronting. And I'm leaving there comforted that we have in Prime Minister Davis the right man for the job at the right time. And so we thank him for his leadership within the Caribbean community. But to you, the Bahamian people, we appreciate you, we love you very much, and we're grateful to you for your tremendous love, warmth, and hospitality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And if I may just say that it is complete by bringing gender balance to all of those comments. We love you too, and we thank you for everything that you've done in welcoming us here, and we look forward to a direct link between the North and the South Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you all. And we must thank our Secretary General for guiding us through this meeting. Carla Barnett, you've done a superb job. Thank you very much. Yeah.